The Mercedes EQB is the most recent model in the Mercedes range to get the electrification treatment. The 66.5 kilowatt-hour battery delivers a 257-mile WLTP range in this four-wheel drive, mid-sized family SUV, with prices starting from around about £52,000 and up.
Let's cut to the chase, because the main reason that a lot of people are going to be interested in this is because it is a 7-seat EV. Finally, something that isn't as expensive as a Tesla Model X to offer you 7-seat versatility and a battery. And that is such good news, because we've been crying out for something like that for a very long time. The Tesla Model Y is certainly going to be rivaling this when that eventually comes in with 7 seats as well. But I would point out the very obvious. This is based on the Mercedes GLB. In fact, it looks much like the GLB, except it does have this flush grille and there's a light bar at the back as well, which is the easiest way to differentiate them. Before we have a closer look inside the Mercedes EQB, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the CarGurus UK YouTube channel, and turn on your notifications, ring that bell so that you don't miss any of our lovely videos.
The GLB is a more compact car than any full-size 7-seater, but there is a price to pay given that it isn't quite as roomy inside. Still, there is plenty of space for two average-sized adults to sit very comfortably in the middle row.
So, here's the kicker. This is an early European car and it doesn't have the 7 seats, which is a real frustration, so I'm very sorry about that. What I can tell you is that I have sat in the third row of seats in a standard GLB, which has exactly the same seating as this. Basically, it's children only. The access isn't great. The seats are fine for most kids though. So I know how families use these cars. You're gonna stick the kids in there when you're off to football practice with the neighbours' kids or their friends, whatever, or you've got the grandparents over for the weekend and you need to get everyone in the car to go out for a Sunday lunch, whatever. It's absolutely fine for that. And that is really what people are gonna want it for. So I do think it's gonna tick a lot of boxes on that front. We will get this car into the UK for a proper twin test when we've got a UK car with the 7 seats, so watch this space for that. In the meantime, those seats do fold flat in the EQB and you've got a big enough boot for, you know, probably for a big chunky buggy, maybe not a double buggy, or for a big dog, slightly high load lip, but other than that, it's still going to be a great family car.
If you do get the EQB with the 7 seats, there is very little usable boot space if you have all of the seats up. But with them folded, there is a 485-litre boot space that will be fine for a big dog. The EQB gets a CCS and Type 2 charging socket, just the same as almost every other EV, and these are compatible with the vast majority of public chargers in the UK and Europe. It'll charge at up to 100 kilowatts, which will deliver an additional 100 miles of range in around about 15 to 20 minutes, or an 80% battery charge will take 30 minutes. Plug into a standard 7 kilowatt home wall box and the car will be fully charged in some 10 hours.
I think Mercedes is on a roll at the moment with the quality of its interiors. You get the trademark rotary vents, which look and feel really fabulous. All these materials, it looks really cool and it feels really premium and classy in here. So I think that's going to be one of the real selling points. You can get the EQB in 2 different models from launch. So you can get the 300, which has a bit less power, and you can get the 350, which is the faster option, of course. You can also get 2 different trims. So you can get AMG line or AMG line premium. Basically, you get pretty much everything you want on the entry-level car, unless you want the panoramic glass roof and the keyless entry, in which case you're going to have to go for that AMG line premium, which is a £3,000 extra, and I think probably most people are going to go for it. Of course, you get the 7 seats as standard in the UK, which we don't have in this car, but you really do get pretty much all the equipment you want otherwise, and you get this really good touchscreen and touchpad system. I do think that sometimes this touchpad just feels a bit unnecessary, but the shortcut buttons are really useful. I actually really quite like using these little touch sensitive pads on the steering wheel. And I think it's fairly well documented that I don't generally like touch sensitive buttons on steering wheels. I do find in Mercedes you do get used to it, and I find myself using these quite a lot. So this EQB 350 that we have here, this does 0 to 62 in around about 6.2 seconds, while the 300, which is the entry-level one at the moment, that does the same in more like 8 seconds. I'd probably save the money and just go for the slower one, because really everything about this car feels quite comfort-oriented. The ride on it actually isn't bad, given that the standard GLB, it's not famous for being brilliantly comfortable. It's not bad, but it's not brilliant either. Actually, this rides pretty well, despite the extra weight of those batteries. But generally, it's actually really quite composed. I'm quite impressed, even though this car's on quite big 20-inch wheels. The steering's light, even in sport mode it's quite light, but you get quite a good sense of how much grip there is. Bit of understeer if you go kind of a bit too hot into a corner. In fact, Mercedes is going to be bringing in a front-wheel drive version of the EQB, and that's going to have a slightly longer range and probably be the cheaper car. And that might well be the pick of the range when that becomes available. For now, it's the 300 and the 350, both are 4MATICs, and they're both, I suspect, really nice if this 350 is anything to go by anyway. Brake regen's really decent, so you control it via the paddles on the wheel, which I think is the right way to do brake regen. You've got adaptive regen as standard, which means that the car senses when there's a junction or a car ahead and automatically increases the brake regen. There's 3 different modes, and you can just toggle through those on those paddles, and that turns the adaptive thing off, and you can just have a set level of brake regen if that's what you prefer. Now, the EQB gets a 66.5 kilowatt hour battery. All electric cars have a usable and a total battery capacity. Mercedes only states the usable, so when you fully charge the car, you are fully charging 66.5 kilowatt hours of lithium ion, but there is actually slightly more than that in the battery. It's just dormant. It helps the battery's longevity. All electric cars are like that. The important thing to most people is how far this thing goes in the real world. We are seeing a range of around about 200 miles, just under, despite the fact that it's sort of actually only just over freezing today. It's a really cold day, and cold temperatures always eat away at any EV's battery range. So that's not bad, so I reckon a range of about 180 to 200 in the real world in the winter, and I think you'll see 250 fairly easily, gauging by the efficiency we're seeing today. In warmer temperatures, I can't say that I've really spent enough time in it or done enough of a varied route to give you more than that in terms of an estimate. We are going to get this car in for a proper twin test, and we'll do a bit more of a real world range test then as well, because I think this is actually, although it's been launched quite quietly, it doesn't seem as significant as plenty of other new EVs. I actually think for a lot of families this is going to be the ideal car. It's just a very easy, very slick, very nice car to drive. Even the visibility, the way you sort of sit high up in the car, really high windows, good visibility to the back, everything about this car is just straightforward, practical, common sense, great family car, and I like it a lot for that.
The EQB isn't the avant-garde design extravaganza that some electric cars are these days, but it is a does what it says on the tin kind of car. It's comfortable, it's refined, it's very practical, and even though it is more expensive than petrol or diesel alternatives, it still promises to be a great family car for a very reasonable price. Head to cargurus.co.uk for a whole host of fantastic used cars, electric or otherwise, and we will even tell you if it's a good deal or not.